How is everyone?
Fantastic. Good to be
Great.
here, Eric.
I'm elated to announce the launch of my podcast series, Web3 Hustlers. It just so happens right now I have two hustlers with me. Honored to introduce my close friends Kyle Niedzwiecki and Eli Levine from Black Mountain Investment Group and the Jupiter Fund. Can you both provide brief intros to the audience on what you're working on at Black Mountain, the Jupiter Fund, and your crypto journeys prior to that?
Absolutely. I'll start off. So essentially, our firm slash fund is a manifestation of what we found to be the best and most appealing aspects of private equity, venture capital, and hedge funds, in the sense that Kyle runs our open-end hedge fund, which is very liquid, structured exactly like a hedge fund. But in that fund, and with our company, Black Mountain, we are targeting very high returning potential investment opportunities like a VC would. And we have services that a PE firm would provide with the Black Mountain partnership. So together, we're able to very much improve the value and increase the returns for investors of all the companies that we're investing in slash building.
That's incredible to hear. And I mean, honestly, it's also rare to hear. And a lot of VCs don't provide much input or value and put their sweat and tears behind a lot of the value that they're trying to drive. And I think it's really important that folks like listen to that when they hear folks on my podcast, because I think the investors that I work with are incredible, and to Eli's credit, he's one of them and one of my favorites. In fact, I think he works with most closely with his projects and really is almost a founder at heart.
Definitely. And I couldn't do it without my partner, Kyle.
Yeah, we work as like a tag team. Elijah's more of the TradFi and I'm more of the DeFi, the crypto kind of guy. I started my career 10 years ago when I was 13 years old playing around with the Dogecoin faucets. You know, it's like almost the cat and mouse game of the Stanford experiments with the mouse grabbing the nicotine every 60 seconds. And that was me with claiming 20,000 Dogecoin with the faucet. So if you rolled anywhere between 0 and 999 out of 1,000, right, you'd get 20,000 Dogecoin, and you could refresh that every hour. The website would make their money through the Google advertisements and Google AdSense, and then you just be paid out in Dogecoin, which were pennies at the time. And then if you reach that 1,000 number, that magical number, you were given like the ultimate reward of 2 million Dogecoin. So I amassed a decent collection there, and then just began acquiring Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Dogecoin throughout my years, just super young, not that much capital, but I did find Ethereum right after the IPO. I remember seeing Vitalik's post on the Bitcoin Talk forum talking about the Ethereum. Yeah, it was like the first iteration of the Ethereum white paper on the Bitcoin Talk site. You can still see the link there today. vBooterin, he posted that. And I remember one of my buddies in early 2016, he sent me this French news website where Vitalik was on. He was talking on the French news network about Ethereum and just how it was the next paradigm shift of cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, in addition to Bitcoin. And because at the time, you know, everybody was super interested in Bitcoin, and that's why Litecoin and Dogecoin were developed, because, you know, Litecoin is just a fork of Bitcoin and Dogecoin is just a fork of Litecoin. Not many people know that, but it's just an interesting fact. And because there's no way of writing smart contracts or building NFTs or ERC20 tokens on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. So that's Ethereum's product market fit. And then obviously we saw that 2017 cycle with the ICO craze and the NFTs, and everybody said it was a pre-mine scam coin. But but the technology at an early age, like in Ethereum's infancy, it was more of a scientific community where people would build on to each other's arguments, people would add on to each other's codes, cite each other's sources, etc., give really detailed information about their new EIPs launching. I was helping with the NFT or ERC 721 contract. Not that I did that much help or like a super core contributor, but definitely had some input there, as well as got gifted from the Ethereum Foundation the unicorn token from my donation. But other than that, I continued my development, made a few projects for contract work, nothing of mine because of just, we'll get into this, but the securities laws and all that great stuff that the SEC is coming out with. But I converted that or materialized that information into getting my certified blockchain Ethereum certificate. And from there, I've just been kind of a crypto analyst slash talking point for the Ethereum community and network with a sizable trading on or a sizable following on TradingView.
Incredible, man. And I know that you're trading pretty much 24/7. These markets are tight, and it's hard. You can miss a fill so quickly, especially when we're so low on vol here. Do you have any alpha for folks? Like, is there anything that you found useful in your trading activities recently? And what do you typically look to when things are kind of really stagnant, like choppy crab walk type trading like we have today?
Yeah, yeah. So before I get into that, I'll just explain the flows for the crypto cycles. So we start off with the flows starting with Bitcoin, and then we move into Ethereum after the Bitcoin kind of cools off. So just as an example, the start of this year from January to March, we saw that Bitcoin run up from November from the 16K mark. People thought 12, whatever, doesn't matter. That was the bottom in November, and then January through March, we saw that Bitcoin cycle up, and then we saw just consolidation, accumulation, whatever word you want to call it, it's the same thing. And those flows moved into Ethereum, which is large caps, Ethereum and the other L1s such as Polkadot and Cardano and Solana. Then from there, in that March cycle, we saw those flows into smaller cap projects and the meme coin cycles. So Pepe, that's what we saw. And we just co-authored the article with you, Eric. That was wonderful. Talking about how Pepe reached its $1 billion market cap, 1.8 B even in less than 3 weeks, 19 days. So those flows, it goes from big cap Bitcoin to medium cap Ethereum, other L1s to the smaller capped like Pepe, Wazi, and all those other beautiful coins like Bob and Sponge. And that was the meme token cycle we saw, and then capitalized by Jared from Subway.eth. That was the final leg of that cycle. Everybody was talking about how Bitcoin's going to go to 36K, stuff like that. But no, the flows have to go from the meme coins back into fiat. We have to sit for a little bit. That's why we see Pepe crabbing, Bitcoin crabbing, Ethereum crabbing. And then once everybody's capitulated out into fiat, then we'll see that next spike up in Bitcoin. And I think that's in tandem with the Litecoin halving that we see coming up in August 5th, right? So going back into cycles, the 2011 cycle, Bitcoin dropped 87%. 2014 cycle, we dropped 84%. 2017 last cycle, we dropped 81%. This cycle, we dropped 78%. So the technology is still pretty nascent and in its infancy, but overall, it is getting less and less volatile, and Bitcoin is becoming less bipolar over time. So eventually, maybe let's say 2040, 2050, it's crypto is very early vibes of 1800 stock market, right? Back test back to the 1800s, look how volatile everything was. It's the same story as old time with Bitcoin. We just have not seen that global total adoption yet. The market cap's just sitting barely over $1 trillion. So now that we understand the flows, going back into, alpha, I'm just going to keep it short and sweet. And I know it sounds cliche, but you just need to put in the work, right? This market, especially the crypto currency market, blockchain market, is highly competitive. And if not the most competitive and lucrative market in the world, right? Because it's the last standing open market, free market economy. Because you have these quantitative math champion traders that are going to outwork you. And in outworking you, they're going to catch that same play that you have in mind, a few percentage points lower. They're going to find that alpha before you even capitalize on that before you even know the narrative. So just short and sweet, it's really just putting in the work and doing the research that nobody else does.
Yeah, just to cut in here a little bit, Kyle, I loved all that, and I thought that was incredibly informative. I will just add that like nothing we are sharing right now is or should be considered financial advice. These are only our perspectives and our thoughts. They're not like we're not making money out of this, obviously, and they're not a formal recommendation to do anything. But I think why Kyle and I get along so well is because we really share that sentiment of putting in the work and doing the hard things that other people aren't willing to do. because that's truly where alpha is created, not only in investing, but in all of business and life. If you're, going to the gym or reading books or calling clients, doing 20 calls a day, researching, reading, writing, doing everything you possibly can, that's how you're going to win. And so I think that, combined with Kyle's very long-term perspective on markets and his understanding of how capital works, not only in the current day, but historically how it's worked, those are two main things that we share in common, and which have really helped propel our vision to life in our companies. And so wonderful stuff, Kyle. I absolutely loved all that and agree with it completely.
Thank you, Elijah.
Yeah, and honestly, man, I guess what I would say is I couldn't agree with it more. Like that's really how you learn any kind of trade or any kind of skill. It's just that's the key, because it's the hours in, and then it's also just the passion for it. Like if I didn't love building increasingly more bespoke security structures for you guys coming up with these incredible technologies, then I don't know. I mean, like I honestly, even just like I was recently asked by someone to do something like that, and I just immediately ended the conversation, because the idea of not doing that is not acceptable to me.
Totally.
And we've been doing a lot of research. Like honestly, personally, I just think everyone should do their morning like routine of research. Like if you're in this space, doesn't even matter where you're sitting, what you're doing. I do a morning post. If all you do is read that, I mean, that's great. But like if you start clicking into the articles, you start getting a little deeper, like that's what we're talking about. And it's critical, because at the end of the day, like opening those articles, even the original sources, a lot of the times is really beneficial. And there's a lot you can learn from even getting really deep, and also just, I would say, from a geopolitical and historical perspective, like, and that's what I think we jive so well, because this group is very, very interested in that. And personally, I as someone who takes a very long view as well, feel very similarly. I mean, you have to, especially if you want to understand how markets work, how securities law works, you know what I mean? Those types of things, you just have to look over the long arc of time, and think really carefully about what exactly is being incentivized, and also what is being disincentivized, like creating the right ecosystem. And I mean, that's what made me most excited about our article and about meme coins generally, is just it gives everyone an equal footing to for their lack of care investment, essentially something they're willing to lose 100% of. They get to understand how this new nascent technology works, and perhaps soon we'll be able to have a path forward that isn't that way. And I think there's some members of Congress that are really actively working on that in the House right now, both in the Agricultural Committee and in the Finance Committee, two of the most powerful committees in the world, and interestingly enough, the homes of the CFTC and SEC, both of which are no strangers to this Web3 industry of ours, especially this week having been the times when we now see exchange activity being really tampered down by the SEC, and the SEC is starting to really make good on some of those statements that the chair's been making for a really long time, essentially saying that all of these assets other than Bitcoin are securities. And we are now seeing that happen. And I think people are a little surprised by it. Honestly, I know everyone here isn't surprised by it. Like this is something we've been watching really closely, and like incessantly at some level, because it's just so relevant to what we're all doing. But what I'd say is, like, it has real implications for like whether you believe in Web3 or not. You probably believe that there's something here, because there's a lot of people that are excited about Web3. And if you want Web3 to not have to leave America, you should consider seriously our proposal on meme coins.
Well, the meme coin proposal, and Eric, I'd also love to pick your brain on like more recent action and thinking from the regulators, because they play such an important role in establishing an ecosystem where people can thrive. And so, grateful for all the amazing work they do. I actually had the privilege of meeting 2 of the 5 SEC commissioners this year, actually at the Penn Blockchain Conference I met you at. We heard Hester speak, and I thought she was great and had the absolutely right approach. And Gary, I think, has been very fair in terms of proposing or explaining to the Web3 community. And let's also be very clear that the Web3 community is not just crypto. I look at Web3 as kind of the new age of the internet, which also includes AI and blockchain broadly, and using that in other applications such as data storage and tagging and identification, stuff like that. And I'm sure Kyle has a lot of opinions there as well. But just related to more of what you were saying, Eric, I think like as you were explaining, looking at history is the best way to understand the past. That's literally the title of one of Albert Einstein's books. And as one of the smartest people to ever live, I think we can all take a lesson from him and other people that have done so very successfully. But that goes back to what Kyle was saying. Are you doing the work? And frankly, I think that a lot of people are just lazy these days, and that's been perpetuated by short form content on social media and the music, and really just the culture that's been completely perpetuated among the youth. And I think that's really dangerous, and people are missing this massive opportunity. I mean, 90% of Americans have access to the internet, which means that we really are on as about a level playing field as there's ever been in terms of being able to put in the work, do the research, learn something, and do something with it. And so obviously people come from all different socioeconomic backgrounds and situations that might affect their ability to get that access and be successful and have the resources. But the fact that 90% of Americans do have access to the internet is very telling, and it shows that we're at least trending in the right direction for getting people more on a level playing field to be ready and willing to put in that work and execute and drive success from that.
Yeah, and I would go a step further and just say, like, I have been presenting at an African incubator for Web3. And I would say that I've never been more excited about what entrepreneurs are working on. I've never seen engineers more excited about what they are working on. I wouldn't be surprised at all if from an emerging market we see several many decacorns. Like, honestly, I think we're gonna start to see the democratization of talent, geographically, which is a beautiful thing, and something that I personally am super passionate about. It's why I'm in this space. One of the big reasons. Play to earn gaming was kind of the first time we saw something like this, and now we're kind of starting to see it again, and it's just beautiful because, first of all, the gentleman that I speak with, like at those meetings, like they didn't often even have access to the internet stably until very recently. Like, just having that like inability to access the information, all those things, it just drives them so hard that in some ways, like, I find them to be just as likely to succeed as anyone, in fact more likely to succeed, because they're just so damn hungry.
Yeah, 100%. And I'd also like to add too, this is the first cycle where we're seeing actual confidence in not only builders, but just the overall sentiment in the market. Although, it's bad that we're down still about 70% from the highs. It's the fact that there are people that have lost hope, sure, but there's also a majority of people that are still here and they're going to stay here. Back in the day, back 2011 cycle, 2014 cycle, 2017 cycle, every single time without failure, people thought, crypto was actually over. It was just a failed social experiment. But now that we have people talking about regulations and we have them trying to put a stop to the free market, it's here to stay, whether they like it or not. And I think that this cycle is like where we pass through that threshold of people taking crypto kind of seriously. And that's seen with everything they're doing, like I said, with the regulations and the SEC coming in, as well as the FedNow payment system that's going to be launching live next month.
Yeah, and I think that that's a really good point, because people don't really understand the importance of, like, what people talk about us as if we don't have already a digital dollar, but we do. It's called FedNow, and
It's
it's
called
about to it's
USDC.
it's about to come out, and I think it's very interesting the timing of all this. Like honestly, I couldn't have like I think it must have been an accident, but Jesus, like they have to get more coordinated if they then, because like this is just odd in some ways, the fact that it's so close in time. But I guess what I'd say is like it's just it's the wrong outcome. Like it's not the right way to treat these markets, because I don't think anyone really thinks about investing in cryptocurrencies like they do with respect to investing in an equity. I think it's more about like experimentation, especially if you truly understand Web3 investing and understand what Web3 technology is. Like it's a lot more like technological experimentation, and then it is like anything else. And so once you kind of have that realization, if that's what you're excited about, I mean, beloved, like stay here, be here, we need you. This is the show for you. If not though, then we don't need you. Web3 don't need that. Like we need everyone showing up.
Yeah, a couple of things to add on there. First of all, I absolutely agree with what you guys were saying, where especially right now that it is the bull market and everyone that was here for the speculation and the asset appreciation is fleeted to the AI or whatever other hot industry is getting all the media attention, and the real builders and the real innovators and creators are the ones still here making an impact and using this beautiful technology, which is no doubt revolutionary and no doubt changing everything, and working to actually integrate that into society in a regulated and proper way, which I think has been completely ignored over the last 3 years. Kyle and I have some beautiful literature out on this on our website, which I encourage everybody to look at, blackmountanig.com/insights. We have like an article talking about unregistered exchanges and the risk of NFTs and DAOs and how they're breaking security laws blatantly, as well as many other coin offerings, etc. But one thing I wanted to flag that I think might have been slightly mischaracterized is that FedNow is a CBDC, which it's not. And I know that very confidently because I was, without tooting my own horn in any way, I was at the Zellori Real Estate Conference and I won an award there. And so I got to, stand up and get recognized in front of a room full of some very impressive people. It was an incredibly humbling experience. And the keynote speaker that night was the Philadelphia president and CEO of the Fed, Patrick Harker, who after he spoke, I got to talk to him one-on-one, shook his hand, looked at him in the eyes and started asking him about the potential for technology to solve a lot of the problems, such as lagging data and the Fed's reaction rather than, being reactive to data, being proactive and not necessarily, being so conflicting with all their policies. And he was interested, but he didn't really, necessarily see my perspectives. And then I asked him, I'm like, okay, so what about FedNow? Is that a CBDC? And he said, FedNow is not a CBDC, which is exactly why we dropped an article called FedNow is not a CBDC, which I just linked in the chat. And it's a very short, interesting article, basically just explaining how FedNow is more analogous to PayPal or Zelle or Venmo than it is to a digital currency. However, it's paving the way towards a centralized digital currency, which, as Eric was mentioning, kind of already exists. Like your money, for the most part, is not really in your wallet in the form of paper. It's in your phone in the form of a number, much like a crypto wallet. And so I think we're starting to see the blending of that more and more. And if regulators aren't able to control that, it scares them with good reason. But the people that are so quick to adopt crypto as an open global marketplace are scared of the regulators because they don't want their transactions to be monitored, controlled, or tampered with, which also makes sense. So we're at a really interesting crossroad where there's a ton of tension on both sides, and I'm very curious to see how it's going to resolve.
I think it's going to be hard to like get support for the CBDCs in the redder part of the United States. That's for sure. I think that'll be like a sticking point for Republicans probably generally, but I mean at the same time, like I see your point, like I think it's just hard, man. Coalition building is the name of the game, but it's also not a perfect system. Like And I 100% agree. Like I wish that but I also am older than you, and so I have lost that like awesome and beautiful attribute that Elijah like it always brings to the table, which is that he doesn't have that worn out by the world mentality, and I love it. Like it's really fresh, man, and it's exciting always, and it's really useful when you're talking about new ideas and theories, and especially when we were working through the article, I thought you had some great points, and honestly it was a pleasure working on that with you, man.
Dude, likewise. Thank you for including us on that. And I mean, one of Kyle and I's favorite quotes from Big Sean is that the best part about problems is problems all come with solutions. And I know that's cheesy, but that's really something we live by, not only in our business, but in our everyday lives. And when I think towards the future, like I look at all of our geopolitical problems in America, all of the geopolitical problems in other countries, poverty, homelessness, racism, education, everything, you name it. And like, even though that is terrifying and devastating and absolutely massive problems to take on, those are the types of problems that I want to work to solve over the course of my life. And the fact that those problems exist at such a massive scale excites me to jump in and try to make a difference, no matter how small it might be. And that's exactly why we're working so hard right now to establish good relationships with important people, to become financially independent and abundant, and encourage others to do the same, and to work with regulators, institutions, individuals, whoever it might be, to help come up with creative and exciting solutions that are actually going to make a difference for all those problems.
I agree 100%, and I think that there are paths forward. Like there are compromises that can be made, and there's certainly a lot that should be heard on the Web3 side, I will say pretty openly. And I think that that folks are starting to see that today, most certainly, and especially with this week's activity in the regulatory forum, they'll see that even more, I'm sure, in coming weeks. And what I'd say is this is all not necessarily a surprise, in that we have to be better. Like we have to be better than we have been. We have to do more than we have been, and that's okay. And we're builders, and we'll rise to the occasion.
Yep. That's why we're still here in the bear market, in the depths, in the deepest part of the bear market. We're still here.
So my final question for you guys: incredible crypto fund research is #1 performing multi-strategy crypto fund for 2022. What would you guys say to other managers that are trying to have similar returns and work across so many different asset types and classes?
Yeah, I'd love to answer that. I'd say we oversee a ridiculous amount of deals a month. And the biggest part or key to our success is being able to say no. And I think that's boded well for us and our investors in 2022. That coupled with, like I said earlier, putting in the research and really back testing. So for any quant or any traders, I really recommend back testing your strategy, really making sure it works, go all the way back into like the first tick mark of the stock exchange. Really back test your strategies all the way through. And I guess it's just, again, being there when nobody else is, being in spots where sticky situations where nobody else gets into, and being able to get out of that. So we were trading on FTX US, for example, and we noticed that they were going to go under, and there's a bunch of talk on Twitter. So we preactively withdrew all of our money 12 hours before they crashed. And a simple move like that saved ourselves from, beating our benchmark by 72% to possibly not even existing anymore. And it was the difference of 12 hours.
It's
So
so
I'd
true.
say all in all, it's just being on your feet, being on your toes at all times, really having a pulse on the markets.
I don't think we could leave this in a better place than that. Web3 Hustlers is the place where the signal emerges from the noise, because nothing happens without the hustlers, not even Web3. This will have to be a regular segment, gentlemen. I can't wait to have you on again soon. Enjoy your weekends, everyone.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Eric.
Appreciate it.
Hell yeah. There we go.